Happy New Year, everyone! For the first video of 2024, I've decided to do a top 10 list. Don't worry, this won't become a common thing on my channel. I just want to do something I've never really done before, as well as highlight some episodes you've probably never paid attention to before. For this top 10, I will be discussing the top 10 worst episodes of the classic series of Thomas. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 10. Special Attraction. When it comes to overrated seasons of Thomas, Season 4, along with 20, comes into mind. It's not a bad season, but the amount of people that say that this is the best of the show really bugs me, especially since there are plenty of better seasons out there. Seasons 2, 3, and 5 are all great examples of that. This episode is a great example of why Season 4 isn't very good. This episode is basically just two stories combined into one episode. Now this can and has worked in episodes before this, but here it doesn't work because the two plots have nothing to do with each other. Bulstrode is just bulgy but more boring, and while the crash is epic, I think it was executed better in the books. Overall, this episode isn't too interesting, and it's easily skippable. Number 9. Harvey to the Rescue. This episode is wasted potential. The moral about how different can be good is really strong. However, I don't think it was handled well at all. The engines are rude to Harvey for no reason, Edward is out of character, and the resolution is uninteresting. If you want to see a better version of this episode, then go and watch my rewrite of it, link in the description. Number 8. Thomas and the Rumors. Season 5 had a lot of great episodes, but this episode isn't one of them. As I said in my most recent video, I think this episode is done better in Thomas and the New Engine. By the way, you should totally go and watch the Yellow Striker's review on that episode. He explains it perfectly, link in the description. Anyways, why does Thomas and the New Engine work, but this episode doesn't? First of all, the rumor makes sense. In Thomas and the New Engine, the rumor about Neville being friends with Diesels is built upon. When Thomas arrives, Neville is facing away from him. He is also with Ari and Bert, who are considered the grim messengers of doom. They are also laughing, and since Thomas can't see Neville's face and is quite a distance from them, which makes it harder to hear, I totally understand why Thomas would make that assumption. In Thomas and the Rumors are an inspector comes to the island to see if the engines could be replaced by Harold, which is completely ridiculous. How can one helicopter replace an entire fleet of engines? Percy apparently hears Sir Topham Hatt tell his driver that he's using Harold to take the inspector the island instead of using engines. Like, yes, but that doesn't mean he's going to replace you. This whole incident could have been avoided if Percy had asked his driver what Sir Topham Hatt was talking about. 2. The pacing. I think Thomas and the New Engine uses the 7-minute runtime to its advantage. It takes its time to show the rumor getting worse, but in Thomas and the Rumors, the rumor is rushed through and the engine's reactions are dragged out and stupid.
I know what he's doing, he's counting sheep.
3. The title character is flawed. In Thomas and the New Engine, Thomas is the one that misunderstands the situation, and accidentally spreads the rumors across the island. He also flips out when he sees Neville with his coaches. Yes, the Thomas hates the New Engine trope is overused nowadays, but back then it wasn't as prominent. But here, Thomas is too nice. I do like his development in Season 5, but here he's just some NPC. He wants to give children a new playground, which, by the way, makes this episode gimmicky. He barely has any lines of dialogue, and sits on the sidelines while the other engines act like 6-year-olds. You guys do realize this episode is titled Thomas and the Rumors, not The Rumors, right? And 4, the consequences are serious. In Thomas and the New Engine, thinking too much about the rumors causes Thomas to forget to warn Neville about the broken bridge. And after being yelled at by Emily, Neville speeds down the line and almost falls off the bridge. Now that's dark. I mean, what if he did fall off? Not only would that cause some serious damage to him, but since he's carrying Annie and Clarabelle, if there were any passengers inside them, which I'm sure there were, they would be severely injured, or worse, killed. Not to mention that we see James go under the bridge. Imagine if Neville fell off with James still under it. Think of how much damage that would cause. But in Thomas and the Rumors, all that really happens is that Gordon tries to go faster than Harold, only to get diverted onto the wrong track and crash into a tunnel. And that's it. Nothing else happens, just a really dumb crash. Overall, this episode is bland, gimmicky, and feels like an episode from Season 11 rather than Season 5. Number 7, Percy and the Haunted Mine. This episode is dumb. Percy is too wimpy here, and Donald and Douglas could have easily been replaced with Bill and Ben. Not much more to say, so let's move on. Number 6, Edward's Brass Band. This episode is easily skippable, it's really boring, and it's the plot that's been done before. Edward also feels a little bit out of character. Him being sad that another bus is taking his role just doesn't feel like Edward to me. I think he would be fine with another vehicle taking over his work. I don't know. Nothing more to say besides that. Number 5, Snow. Firstly, Thomas was a bit out of character. I don't think he would have made fun of his best friend being stuck in a snowdrift. He would have immediately gone to get help. But here, Thomas is too nice. I do like his development in Season 5, but here he's just some NPC. He wants to give children a new playground, which, by the way, makes this episode gimmicky. He barely has any lines of dialogue, and sits on the sidelines while the other engines act like 6-year-olds.
I am such a hypocrite.
Secondly, Scarlowi's crew were idiots in this episode. I mean, stopping for a cup of cocoa? Really? If Audrey hated Henry's Forest for breaking Rule 55, then he'll definitely hate this episode for doing the same thing. And third, as many others have said, this episode treats avalanches like they're a joke, which they are not. There is nothing funny about an avalanche. Seriously, people have died in them. This honestly baffles me. I mean, many other episodes in Season 5 treated their situations very seriously, such as almost getting crushed by a rock slide, nearly going over a waterfall, or being chased by a large rock. But here, it seems we have to treat the situation lightheartedly because it's a kid's show. Once again, if you want to see a better version of this episode, then go and watch my rewrite of it, link in the description. Number 4, Buffer Bother. Buffer Bother is one good turn dialed up to 100. Bill is so annoying that it's hard to root for him, and Ben's new buffer, while they looked nice, were completely pointless as they are never seen again after this episode. I can see why some people say this is the worst classic episode, but there are 3 more that I think are worse than this, 2 of them being obvious. Number 3, Rheneas and the Roller Coaster. Rheneas and the Roller Coaster is my least favorite episode of Season 7. Not only is Rheneas very out of character, but the story is very boring. The runaway scene itself feels like something from Season 12 rather than Season 7. I think the scene is done better in the concept art. And I don't get why Rheneas didn't just stop and go back to the junction instead of speeding up. Moving on. Number 2, Rusty Saves the Day. Yes, I know, this episode has been talked about to death, but for good reason. The continuity is all over the place, Sir Topham Hatt and Scarlowi are completely out of character, and the model work is dull as it usually is in the Season 6. The only thing I like is Rusty's dynamic with Elizabeth. I enjoyed it when Rusty convinces her to help fix the line, but that's really all it has going for it. And the number 1 worst episode of the classic series is Middle Engine. Again, this is another episode that has been talked about to death, so I'm going to keep this section short. Why is this episode so badly edited? Why are Ari and Birch and Eric bullies? Why is everyone such a jerk to Percy? Why is there this loading ramp with no ways of holding the wagon? Why wasn't Henry paying attention? How did nobody notice this green saddle tank engine on the loading ramp? Why does Sir Tom have blamed Percy for the incident? Why don't Ari and Bert ever get punished? If you want to see a better review of this episode, then go watch Thomas 1, Edward 2, Henry 3's worst episode list. He explains it way better than I can. Overall, this episode sucks, and it is not only the worst episode of the classic series, but also one of the worst episodes of the entire show. Yes, I'll even go that far.